Tashtale and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this month Tibet Awareness Talk Series. Here at the Tibet Museum, we organize this monthly talk series as a part of our ongoing Tibet Awareness initiative. Today, we have a very special speaker with us, Loten Namling. Allow me to provide a brief introduction. Loten is a part of our first generation Tibetan born in India, currently based in Switzerland. For over 30 years, he has traveled the world sharing the Tibet story through his music. He is known for his versatility as a singer, performing a classical Tibetan genre, including a Nangma, Lu, Kar, and Dekar. He is also an accomplished player of drumye and Tibetan traditional flute. While in Europe, he toured with his band Porokarpo. Today's title is The Tibetan Political Movement Through the Lens of Artists. He will share his experience of how, through art, he has told the story of Tibet struggle and helped preserve our culture. Without further delay, I would like to hand over the stage to the distinguished speaker, Loten Namling La.
I think that was the best introduction I ever had. So that's thank you so much. I mean, this talk is so like spontaneously, my whole lifestyle for the last 30 years or so is spontaneity. So I always do everything spontaneous. I do not know what I'm going to do tomorrow. And this is a blessed thing that I think I received from my parents' generation. And therefore, as you all know, there is no such thing as activist school, isn't it? It's something that I think you will all know that because of certain situation, we are kind of brought in this situation where, what's happening in Tibet, I do not need to explain much. And therefore, as a child, I always say, because this question always comes up to me, because as a singer, I travel around, as he said, and many people, they ask me, why did you sing, or what is the reason why you are singing, and don't you miss your homeland? They ask this question, And I said, look, I was born in India, and if I go deep into me and all these stories, the tears of my parents and their generation, then of course I suddenly become emotional. Otherwise, being born in a free country like India and now in Switzerland, personally there's no such thing as worries, But yeah, when I go deep into certain situations, and then you feel that you have to do something. And that's where the activism starts, because you believe in something, especially, the stories that your parents, and I grew up here in Dharamshala. So at the time, I'm so honored that Tetsila is here. I'm a big fan of him, a follower. And also I think I see a couple of, administration, kind of civil servants, and then of course all of you. So I do not know exactly, because as I said before, there's no such thing as activism school, So as I said before, it all comes from deep inside, and where I felt that when each time when I live in Switzerland, in one of the most wonderful, beautiful place on this planet, then sometimes when I think of my parents, I see the tears coming down. And so that's where I started activism. But actually this activism that I'm talking started actually a long time back. And therefore today, since my whole life, I'm not dead. So when you are dead, then somebody writes about you, and then it becomes crystal clear what you have done and all that thing. So I'm still living, and I do not know exactly what I did yesterday or what I'm going to do tomorrow. So therefore, I kind of put myself together on this. I've never done this, but just to start the discussion, And I think 10 minutes is too short, actually, for a question answer. Therefore, I will try to go through this, and I'll try to be as simple as possible, because most of you are here because you have seen the whole area here, and therefore I need not talk too much into so many things that you probably know much better than me now or experienced. So yeah, so I just put something together, and the theme is the Tibetan political movement through the lens of an artist. Well, people say I'm an artist. I never call myself an artist. It's something people say because I sing or because I do certain things. They label you, you know, and they label you as an activist, as an artist. All these things are labels. And but to be honest, I don't even know what I am. But my heart is for the Tibetans inside Tibet, and I want to free them, because I know the genuinity of my people's, struggle. All these things, whether you call me whatever. So I just put something together. Activism and Art, a journey of a Tibetan singer and an activist. Greetings, everyone. I'm honored to present my journey of combining activism and art to highlight the plight of Tibet. As a Tibetan singer, musician, and activist, I've used my platform to bring the issue of Tibet to the global stage. My journey began at the age of 16 when I joined the Tibetan Youth Congress in Dharamshala. Since then, activism has been a core part of my life. After completing my schooling, I took my first significant step in activism at Mussoorie, where I organized a boycott of Chinese-made goods among the Tibetan students. Mussoorie is in North India also. This successful initiative raised awareness about how profits from Chinese products could fuel oppression in Tibet. Moving to Delhi University, St. Stephen's College, I realized the limited awareness of Tibet among Indian students. This prompted me to invite His Holiness the Dalai Lama to speak at the college, marking the first such visit to an Indian university and fostering a deeper connection with Indian students. In Switzerland, I continued my activism through Tibetan Youth Association. Tibetan Youth Association is used to be part of Tibetan Youth Congress, and contributing to the magazine Youngest Tibet with political cartoons. I was for 1 year the editor of the Youngest Tibet. Youngest Tibet is the kind of the magazine of the Tibetan Youth Congress or Youth Association in Europe. So I started doing cartoons, political cartoons and caricatures. And also I organized protests against Chinese dignitaries, such as from Li Peng to Hu Yaobang and Jiang Zemin, Xi Jinping. Every time I went there, protested, and I was put in prison several times. Dignitaries and creative demonstrations like toilet paper. I'm just saying these things just to later on we can just go detail more, a little bit more detail if you have any questions. For example, here it says about creative demonstrations like toilet paper protest. So this toilet paper protest is something like we Tibetans have katak, the white scarf. So when the Chinese Premier Jiang Zemin came, I needed to protest. But just go to protest with your fist. Everybody does that. I needed to do something. That's why we call it creative protest. So the toilet paper looks like a katak, in a way. So I spread toilet paper all over Bern to welcome Mr. Jiang Zemin. So and then this is the toilet paper. And then also I did a symbolic walk. I did a symbolic coffin walk from Bern to Geneva which captured international attention. So when I talk about this coffin, in Switzerland around that time, I mean all over the world, all Western countries, they wanted to do business with, of course, this strong urge to do business with China. There was even one kind of a statement or some idea that if one company in Switzerland sells underwear to every Chinese, they will become a multi-billionaire. You know, that kind of idea they had. And I know that, I heard this from some business people. So I was so desperate because there were so many self-immolations taking place. At the time, it was the 35th self-immolation. I called all the newspapers in Switzerland. I called radios and televisions, and I asked them to please talk about these self-immolators. Because if the people know about this, you are the ones who inform the people and let the people know about the reality in Tibet. But all these newspapers, even forget about the business people, the newspapers, journalists, they were so kind of controlled by Chinese propaganda at that time that they told me, I told them, please talk about it. And they said, no, we cannot talk about it because, you know, we are not in Tibet. So journalism kind of, like you need to go there. So I said, okay, there are these YouTubers. You can see in YouTube the Tibetan self-immolating. But they said, okay, this could be fake. And you know, you remember in some Arabic country, there was one man who self-immolated, and the whole world talked about it. And they were 35th or the 36th around that time self-immolation taking place, and nobody wanted to talk about it. I'm talking about the Western countries. So I said, because they don't want to go talk about it, they said, okay, if you do not want to talk about it, then I will go and talk to your people. So I needed something, you know, something provocative to kind of, because we Tibetans, we do this demonstration our whole life, ever since we came in exile. You know, going in front of the Chinese embassy, shouting, all those things, something very normal. So I needed something because I was so hurt. And when you are so hurt, you are so desperate, you look for all these, you know, means to, you know, achieve what you want to do. So I even thought of self-immolating myself. There was a time where, because self-immolation was taking every week there was a self-immolation, and it was so hard, you know. And so I was thinking about, but then, you know, of course, I don't have the courage like those self-immolators in Tibet. I do not have that courage. So then I said to myself, okay, at least I can go to that point where I can feel almost that second before that I can self-immolate it. So then I had to really, early morning I meditated. I don't mean meditation in the sense of like, you know, Buddhist meditation, but more in terms of, you know, what I can do. You know, you have to really sit down and, you know, think about it. So then I came to an idea about a coffin. Because what is a coffin? You put the dead person in the coffin. Tibet is dying. So as a symbolic way to tell the world that Tibet is dying, so I said, okay, I'm going to make a coffin. And then pull this coffin all over Switzerland so that these people in the West, because everybody, especially in the West, young people at the time, before the COVID, of course, people don't like to talk about death. I can tell you the whole story about this. But in the end, what I'm trying to say is that I made this coffin through the help of a very kind man, because I'm not a carpenter, so I asked him. I try to buy normal coffins, but they're very, you know, soft, you know. I mean, if I'm going to pull, they're going to break on the way. So I kind of designed a coffin, and I gave it to my friend, and I asked him to do this. And then there are these 4 wheels, you know, and so I pulled to cut, we can go into detail. I mean, actually, this whole journey of 2 months of pulling the coffin itself, I can write a book, really. It was amazing. Personally, I think this was one of the most I had. It was so amazing, you know. But this we can talk later another time. But basically, I pulled a coffin from Bern to Geneva, provoking people, because there is a guy pulling a coffin, you know, along the house, and you know, and yeah, I did that. And in the beginning, the first day was so frustrating, and I felt myself so ashamed because there was nobody there. I sent some kind of a press release. I do not know how to make a press release, but I did send something through the help of my friend. But nobody came except 1 or 2 Tibetans and one dear friend who is a musician, and there was none. I was thinking the whole world will come there. But then I thought, because I felt so ashamed, I closed my eyes and I said, that's the exact reason, you know, because Tibet, nobody cares about Tibet. These self-emulations, nobody cares. And I was the perfect example why people are not coming, because Tibet is abandoned. Nobody wants to talk about Tibet. So I felt so, in a way, I felt very comfortable. I said, now I'm representing the real Tibet that is, you know, suffering or whatever. Anyway, so this is, I protest in a symbolic coffin walk from Bern to Geneva, which captured international attention. In the beginning, of course, it was difficult, as I said. Nobody wanted to talk about it. But as I walked and pulled the coffin was about 100 kilos. And you know, Switzerland, you go up and down. So I had several troubles. And in the end, the more you do something, you get more ideas. And so I found a stable way to control everything. You know, you can actually see it. There is a film by, actually this Tibetan coffin walking was amazing, because there was a guy, a very good friend of mine. He told me, Loten, why don't you do some recording of the coffin journey? I said, look, firstly, I don't have money. Secondly, I'm not going to do like this and selfie and walk around, you know, with a coffin, you know. So then he suggested that he has a friend who does a little bit of video working or something like that. He's a filmmaker or something like that. Then I called him. He gave me the number, my friend. I called this guy. His name is Dodo. I said, you know, I'm pulling. Can you please come and shoot some, you know, footages here and there? He said, okay, because he knew me. He knows me through my activism, you know. So he said, yeah, I know you, so I will come. And so I didn't even have this idea of making a film called Tibetan Warrior. This came later, after he followed me and did the shootings, and then he presented it to the Swiss TV, and Swiss TV sponsored. Swiss TV sponsored the whole project, and in the end, they called it Tibetan Warrior. And the title Tibetan Warrior, I refused. I said, I'm not a warrior. You cannot put this title Tibetan Warrior. I said, I'm a simple Tibetan, you know, pulling a coffin for the issue of Tibet, you know, for the cause. But he said he has to have this warrior, because on internet, when they search, there was no Tibetan warrior as a word which comes out. So he said, this is good for the film. You know, there's some technique, whatever. So anyway, I'm not going to go detail into these things, maybe perhaps another time. So this film came, so which captured, and when I reached Geneva, my friend Franz Treichler, he's the most famous Swiss musician. He kind of supported me, and he's amazing. So through him, I was able to gather again more than 16 artists, bands from all over Switzerland, and we performed in front of the United Nations the day we arrived. Through my music, I performed the band Porokapo. Oh, now it talks about Porokapo. So I have a rock band, Porokapo. Again, the main reason why I made this Porokapo is because I hear, as a Tibetan, these amazing messages, songs and melodies from Tibet to the world, but only the Tibetans listen to these songs. And these messages must be heard by the world, because you know, they are these messages, singers, they sing from their heart to the world. Actually, they are for the world to hear, not just for the Tibetans. I was invited at the 25th Nobel Peace Prize Day in Norway by the Nobel Peace Prize Committee and the Tibetan community to sing for His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And that time, I had a spontaneous kind of a deep wish, and it just came out of my mouth. And His Holiness, I've performed for His Holiness almost more than 30 times. So His Holiness knows me very well through my performances. And at the hotel in Norway, he came to me and said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I've come to sing for you." And I told him that there are these amazing, it came so spontaneously, I didn't even know what I was saying, but because this deep urge was there all the time, so something came out of me and said, "His Holiness, please help me to spread the songs, the messages from Tibet to the world." And then I had a guitar with me. I said, "Can you play on this?" And there is also on YouTube this beautiful moment where His Holiness, you know, giggles and, you know, plays like that a little bit. Anyway, I asked His Holiness to bless me to make sure that I can, like, you know, be able to, yeah. That time I didn't think about a band, but of course the wish was there. But just simply that I can transport the wishes of Tibetans inside Tibet through music to the world. When I came back to Switzerland from Norway, I was just walking, and suddenly I saw this man, and many, many years ago, I had one class of guitar lesson from him. So, you know, when you are desperate, you seek every solution and, you know, possibilities that you can do something. I just said, "Hey, Patrick, I have something, you know, very, very important from my heart, you know, and this is, I know that he's a very good musician. So I asked him, "Can you please help me? I want to, you know, bring these songs to the world." And then he said, "Okay, Loten, no problem." And in the end, because of the blessing of His Holiness Dalai Lama, within 2 weeks and in a month's time, we formed a band. And with that band, we are now traveling all over the world, singing the songs on a highly kind of really top kind of you know, standard. All my musicians are some of the top musicians in Switzerland, jazz musicians. And they are also with great heart, you know, they have great heart. So they always, I tell them, you know, please help me, help me, help me. You have to say that sometimes. But then I also show them my capabilities. I told them, this is what I can do. Through us, let's bring this message. And now we have an amazing band, Porokapo. Porokapo means white crow. So this is one. Through my music, I formed the band Porokapo and released the album Behind the Two Mountains, blending traditional Tibetan music with rock. I have also collaborated with various musicians and explored ventriloquism as a form of satirical activism. My latest hobby, or whatever you call it, you know, ventriloquism, you know, so yesterday I was talking to Tenzin Gyatso, you know, and he's a great activist in, you know, fighting for, you know, shouting for free Tibet and all these things. Blending traditional Tibetan music rock, I have collaborated with various musicians and explores ventriloquism as a form of satirical activism. I love ventriloquism. And today I stand before you as an artist whose work continues to evolve, always aiming to shed light on Tibet's struggle and keep the wheel of art turning. And this is very important for me. There is something called the wheel of Dharma, you know. So I call it the wheel of art. Until Tibet gains freedom, I will keep on turning this wheel of art. And I tell many young Tibetans, you know, 1 or 2, 3, 4 handful of artists is not enough. We need, because Tibetan kids are so talented artists. We are born artists, Tibetan kids. So I'm telling, explore the, you know, the artistic qualities of each. Give them, you know, possibilities. Give them this, you know, the strength and to come out and become artists and talk about artists. You know, when you sing, this is something that I've realized in my life, you know, all this life in the last 35. Actually, I've been singing for the last 45 years. When I came to Switzerland, like every Tibetan's going to Switzerland, I wanted to earn money. I wanted to become rich and, you know, come back to the Dharamshala and, you know, buy a house or something like that. I don't know, some crazy ideas, which all. But then, after a few years, I became so, you know, I didn't feel that those ideas, aims that I had, you know, I didn't really think those were going to work. And I wanted to come back, but I never go back. I always go forward. And whatever, you know, whatever happens, I always go. Even, you know, I don't like to go to a place where I've been already. Once His Holiness Dalai Lama said, go always to a new place. So I always listen to His Holiness because it's amazing, you know. Many of the things that I do, I've listened from deep inside, like this particular thing. Never go back to the same place. Go always in the forward to the next place. So this is particularly a small kind of, to make you, some of you may not know me, and I think a lot of you know me through Facebook. Yes, so there were some expectations from the organizers. They were expecting certain things through art, you know, and singing and performing. So they raised certain questions. And then I also use now, I just want to say, sorry, I'm a little bit drifting here and there, but it doesn't matter because I didn't prepare for it. I always say, okay, scholars prepare for it. As I said before, is there something like activism school? There is no such thing as that. So I'm not presenting you some kind of a, you know, paper and to show off my, you know, work. But basically, since this was very kind of spontaneously decided, I was just thinking what a great opportunity for me is to talk to friends who will come, and especially, you know, I love to talk to younger generation because I'm kind of really, I've been living in Switzerland for the last 45 years, and 36, sorry. 45 is more the singing part. So more than 36, around 36 years, and I'm kind of like, you know, away from this community for a long time. So of course I see things here and there, but at the same time, you know, like it's difficult to come here and to see everything as I wish. So anyway, that's why I prepared this. But I just want to go through, because this morning I just made a chronology of what I've done. I've done so many things, but and I never really recorded them. But this morning I thought that this is a very kind of really honorable thing to be here and to be invited by the museum. And so I just wrote down, as I said, at the age of 16 I joined the Tibetan Youth Congress. I felt for the first time, honestly, I remember it, I was empowered. You know, I received some kind of initiation that time to really, you know, have this, to fight for Tibet. Like joining the Tibetan Youth Congress was such an empowering thing. You know, you wouldn't, I mean, if I say this, probably felt so proud at the age of 16. You know, I joined the Tibetan Youth Congress. That time, Hasan Sringla, they're so amazing, you know, men and women. They were like totally dedicated. And today I say sometimes the fact who I am today is because of these amazing, they indoctrinated us, you know, in a way, positively, you know. That's why I tell today, I don't know what's the situation here today. I tell, when I meet some Tibetan teachers, I tell them, you should indoctrinate. It's very important. Chinese are negatively indoctrinating, telling lies. And we have so much good things to tell, and if we just keep quiet and we think that, oh, they will learn it by some, you know, no, you have to indoctrinate. Therefore, I'm here because the previous generation, they indoctrinated us and showed the way, and therefore it's really good. What I'm doing, I feel proud. Then, after I finished class 10, I went to Mussoorie CST school, and there I started, if some of you will believe or not believe, but doesn't matter, that time, it's strange. I have a very strange moment here because I was in class 12, Mussoorie, and I was prefect of the school. So I had certain kind of, privileges. So I had a radio, and I always listened to BBC at 7:30. That's why I tell people that my English is very simple. It's BBC English. 7:30 early morning radio, listening to BBC. And I think it was Sunday, the rest of the school, they were having breakfast, but because around 7:30, because of this radio, so I listened, and suddenly there was one news which I never expected, out of the blue, and the radio said, for the first time, there is a demonstration taking place in Tibet, and that there are so many this and that, whatever. And I felt that I was so touched. It was like, until then, the whole of Tibet was so blocked. We didn't know anything about what's happening in Tibet. Then suddenly I hear, just because I listened to Radio BBC 7:30, I heard this, that there is a demonstration taking place. I was thrilled to hear that there are Tibetans alive behind this wall, behind these mountains. So, in Mussoorie, I was in Mussoorie, before I was in TCB, I've come to study 10+2. So, that time, so many children, they come from Nepal. And that time, there are, these girls and boys wearing black shoe, like a Kung Fu style. There is this shoe. And then pens. Everything was from Nepal, I don't know, from Tibet, through China, whatever. I think almost the whole school was wearing this Chinese made in China shoe, made in China pens, made in China this and that. I said to myself, school is where we learn also, politics for the freedom. Because I've heard as a child Bhagat Singh, all these great Indian. And so, because I was the prefect, I'm sorry if I'm going too long, but I need to explain this. That's where actually my whole activism started. So that time, I was so moved that I misused the position of a prefect in Mussoorie. And then I said, I moved from each dormitory to another. I told my colleagues, prefects, that I'm going to do this. And they didn't really say anything. They just kept quiet. And then I misused the situation. And I gave a speech to each and every dormitory. And it was so amazing. After I spoke, the kids ran out, ran from their, jumped from their beds and took out all the Chinese goods to burn. I said, we have to burn them. But anyway, that's where also we can go in detail about that, but I just don't want to. So that was in Mussoorie, Then I went to Delhi University, St. Stephen's. I joined St. Stephen's College, a very prestigious college. When I came to St. Stephen's, I realized that Indians didn't know anything about Tibet. Even they called His Holiness Dalai Lama Mr. Dalai Lama, and they had no idea, very less that time. So I thought this cannot be. So what I did was I came to Tida after one of my during one of the school holidays, college holidays. I borrowed BBC's History of Tibet, Volume 1, 2, and 3. I showed it to the college. The college students, they were amazed to hear for the first time that Tibet, as the documentary film shows, like they couldn't even believe that that's Tibet, Yeah, Tibet, wow, Then I started doing that. And then, of course, at certain point, Chinese government, Chinese embassy came to know about my activism. And we have in St. Stephen's this, so there's this in the end, the Chinese ambassador was supposed to talk at our college. He refused to come in the last moment because he said there is a Tibetan guy and he cannot, how do you say, security kind of thing, you know. So he kind of cancelled his talk. And that's where, you know, my friend now, he's the number 2 in World Bank. His name is Prashant. He was at the time the president of the Students' Union. And he came to me and said, you are the reason why the Chinese guy, you know, cancelled. And he said, can you please invite Mr. Dalai Lama? And I told him, firstly, it's not Mr. Dalai Lama, it's His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Secondly, you just cannot invite His Holiness in a small room for discussion. So then, you know, eventually, after, you know, there's a whole story again behind this. His Holiness came to our college, and 3 times, one after another, His Holiness gave such a most beautiful talk on love and compassion about a bird, you know, in Nobulinga. You know, there's a whole story again. So later, all the college students and teachers, professors, even the principal came to me and said, thank you so much, that was so wonderful. So that was so then when I came to Switzerland, now I live in Switzerland for the last 36 years, I joined again the Tibetan Youth Congress, but they call it Tibetan Youth Association. There I did cartooning. You know, when I was in St. Stephen's, I learned how to do cartooning and reading newspapers, going deeply into the essence of what is cartooning. So I did cartoons for the Tibetan Youth Congress, you know, depicting the, you know, in a satirical way. And oh yeah, this is here. Tenzin Gyatso, he came and I did this cartoon of His Holiness pulling a cart here. You know, this is a Tibetan in a cart, and His Holiness is pulling, you know, taking out. So this cartoon became very famous. All Tibetans talking about this cartoon. So, and then Tenzin Gyatso asked me, can I use your cartoon? So there are lots of cartooning. Look, His Holiness on a thin line here. And all these cartoons, they are not so good drawing, but they were generally from my heart. So I just thought that this is important, you know. That at the time, there was no cartooning in Tibetan community, except one, there was this there's a book by one great Tibetan man, and there is an illustration. Otherwise, I've never seen political cartoons. And so, you know, so this is one of these, just to prove about the cartooning. Yeah, about the demonstrations, as I said, I did a lot of demonstrations from Lipeng to all these things in front of the Chinese embassy and Swiss. In 2006, I did, to raise awareness, I did an exhibition in Switzerland, in Bern, you know, and then in 2008, about, that time it's about Olympic. In 2006, China was already preparing, you know, like lobbying for this opening. And then I did a art exhibition. And 2008 also, then I organized a big, to raise awareness of Tibet, I organized a big as a concert in front of the Swiss government, and it was called Swiss Artists for Tibet. And you know, in the end, I tell you, it was such a great success. In the beginning, it was difficult because I had only 5 Swiss francs in my pocket. And when I have sometimes these ideas, I just roam around. I think about the 6th Dalai Lama. I'm a big fan of his 6th Dalai Lama. So 6th Dalai Lama used to walk around, you know, in the night in the Lhasa Pakor, no? So like that, I developed certain kind of, whenever I had problems of thinking and focusing, I just walk into the old city of Bern. So one time, when I was walking around this time of 2008, there was a boy who I knew was doing also some kind of, you know, organizing music thing. So I was just like desperately walking around. I met him and I said, hey, can you help me? So eventually I organized this Swiss Artists for Tibet, and it was a great set. And then I did this toilet paper protest. Again, you know, as I said before, to welcome Xi Jinping or Jiang Zemin. Then I did this coffin journey. If you have internet, Tibetan Warrior was 5 years on Netflix. and then it was shown several times on Swiss television. And also, what is interesting is recently I met a filmmaker who works for a film school, and he told me, Loten, you know, your documentary film, Tibetan Warrior, is like a school, how to make a documentary, an example. So I was so proud of it. And then I did this ski walk from Bern to Geneva. I think there was a ski walk. And I did a ski walk because during the Winter Olympic, again, you know, we need to protest. This is the one. This is at the train station. Just before I walked, the Keystone came because I did a, you know, kind of a press release. So Keystone followed me. So, you know, the big kind of photography kind of a agency. Do they do that? Oh, come on, I have 5. I think I can wrap up in 5 minutes, yeah. So the ski walk, I did it because to protest the Olympic, the Winter Olympic. And it was a great success because about 60 newspapers around the world published this photo. You know, I didn't expect that. It was even better than pulling the coffin, because pulling the coffin was so difficult because it's something so new that people really didn't trust in the beginning. Newspapers was, but when I started this ski walk, I already had established some kind of a, you know, thing, you know. So it was easy for the newspapers to follow me. So around 60 newspapers around the world published this photo and several other photos. And I am a musician, so my music is actually, you know, when I first came to Switzerland, I didn't know that music had 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I didn't know this. Of course, I was playing Damien, but we Tibetans, you know, like all the folk singers, we don't know all the notations and all those, you know, rules. So you play it because you learn it by heart, you know. But I never knew that there is that exactly 1, 2, 3, 4. So when I first came to Switzerland, I had lots of trouble. There were people who told me, because I was so interested, I wanted to sing with these people. I first heard a guy who was playing cello. I said, oh, I've never seen cello, you know. Cello is so good to the ear, you know. And I said, can I sing with you? And, you know, it was terrible because I didn't know how to, you know, follow 1, 2, 3, 4. So I was always off the track. But even during the Poro Kabu, the initial moments, I had tough time. But I held on me that I said, I have to do this, you know. So I have this musical project. There's a guy called Bruno. He's a very famous singer in Bern, a musician. He's a multi-instrumentalist. So with him, I have a project. And this project is amazing because I showed it to my kids. And the next day they called me and they told me that, Loten, this is such a good music. So I'm mixing Tibetan Nangot Döshe, the classical songs, with a little bit of, you know, taste of jazz and rock and blues. I can play one song example here, if you allow me to, just as an idea. Then I just recently did a fusion with Maketa. She's the lead violinist of French, Paris, what do you call that, symphony orchestra, and also in Czech Republic. So I have a fusion with her. It's amazing also, it was so. Then I had a band, a band was interested in me during the time when I was pulling the coffin. So they asked me to come in between. So I went to Austria in Linz. And there was a band called Porn to Hula. Very nice, like Porn to Hula, you know, their band. So they told me, Loten, I want to do something for you. And I was so happy because there was the first reaction from a musician coming and say, we love your walk and we love to contribute. So I did a heavy metal, you know. Then around that time, just before that, I played with Brazil's most famous Sepultura, you know Sepultura, the heavy metal, you know. So during that time also I expressed about Tibet. And then Violet Sounds. is another band. We did a vinyl for Pon Hula, Violet Sound. And Violet Sounds, I especially did this because I wanted that we sing a lot about, Tibetans sing a lot about Panchen Lama, but there is no song in English. So I said, let's do a song in English about Panchen Lama. So I did a rock song in Panchen Lama, and it's also here. I can give it to you if you want. And then I did a song for self-immolators, you know, and that was really good. It's a little bit like a Pink Floyd, because I grew up in this generation of Pink Floyd time. Then of course I do traditional. I have the Dakar here. I will do it for you to wash away all your sins and negativities. It's good like that, no? Anyway, so then I went to Mongolia last year for 2 months, because His Holiness the Dalai Lama, when I went to Mongolia, I went to receive teaching from Chadurumchi, because I wanted to bring also Mongolia and Tibet. We are so close, especially His Holiness Dalai Lama told the Mongolians many years ago when he went there, the Tibetans and Mongolians are like, what do you call, twin brothers and sisters. So they talked about it to me. And when I was in Mongolia, they all called me, I'm the Genghis Khan. You know, the Chinese, they tried to get rid of me. Some Chinese Mongolian officials came to me and said, Loten, you know, be careful. Here, China rules here also. So Chadurumchi asked me to sing for his Kala Chakra, because I had one sung for His Holiness Dalai Lama, and that time Chadurumchi was there. So since he was doing Kala Chakra, he asked me to do a song. And after 2 days, he called me and said, Lotenla, there is a pressure from the south, so we cannot have you singing there. And then several Mongolian officials came to me and said, Loten, don't do too much here, because there's Chinese, you know, spies around here. And then I told Chadurumchi, don't worry, Chadurumchi, I've come here to, you know, receive teaching from you. But after 2 days, some of my friends, they took me into the desert, Gobi Desert, and there was a huge Genghis Khan statue. That's what I call politics. I prostrated in front of Genghis Khan. And then that evening, I had a dream. And the dream was I was riding along horses with Genghis Khan. And Genghis Khan was telling me, that was a dream I had, you know. And then I told, the Genghis Khan was telling me, Loten, welcome back, like that, you know. Like, I'm happy that you are with me riding. So next day, I wrote a poem. And the poem goes like this. It's in English, but later I asked a Mongolian woman, a poet, to translate it. And the poem goes like this. So I had this, I cannot remember word to word, but so what happens is that I wrote in the poem that Genghis Khan, I was riding along with him, and then in the morning suddenly the window opened and the gust of wind and the Genghis Khan rode, you know, out of the window, you know, like that. And the Mongolians, my God, after that, nobody was able to touch me. I met the ex-president, I met the prime minister, I met those people who told me, be careful. Everybody, you know, was like kind of submitting. They didn't want to have any trouble with me, because even my visa was finishing in 1 month. I needed 1 more month to finish my song. And they gave me 1 more month, you know, like that. And the last thing, I do Lama Mandi now. I have an old tradition of telling stories. I'm working on that. So anyway, I think 5 minutes is just finished now. So that's good. Thank you so much. 야라니 야라 주도세 야라니 도라타뮤도세 야라니 도나시바라헤 야라니 야라 주도세 야니 도라타뮤도세 야라니 도나시바라헤 야라니 야라 주도세 야라니 도라타뮤도세 야라니 도나시바라헤 라소스 아주대 슈살라메 대사이 아주대라 덴데창메 중사 주대라 야라 주돌라 라에 오나 돌라 타미도 셰라 오나 돌리 셰바라